All right, Billy, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on, man. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Good to see you. So, for those of you who haven't met Billy yet, he was a professional poker player, had a lot of experience in that world and did really well. He's also been into bodybuilding recently, won a couple of bodybuilding competitions, really cool guy. And he's online entrepreneur. He's got his website, foreverjobless.com, which I highly recommend you check out as an excellent example of what you can do with a blog. I mean, his blog posts are on topic, on point. You'll see like hundreds of comments on every single one of his blog posts because he's writing such amazing information and sharing that with people. So really good person to model if you're looking at starting a blog or improving your blog. So Billy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us how you get started. First of all, I kind of want to hear about like poker. Like how did you get into that world? And then how did you transition out of being a pro poker player into an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I got into poker mainly in college. I started playing literally for pennies. I think I put like $50 on, and I didn't even have a credit card. So my college roommate, I gave him $50. He put $50 on a credit card or from his credit card online for me, and just started, buying into like $1 games or $5 games, and so I'd win or lose, pennies in a day or a quarter or something, and it was small money, but I learned how to play and just slowly got better. Learned that there was people making real money at it, and so as a hungry college kid, I really wanted to learn how do I do that, and so I started reading all sorts of books and forums and everything, and got really good. And then when I left college, had a job for a really short time period, and been forever jobless ever since. Started playing poker full time, and then hired a coach. Hired probably a couple poker coaches over time, and got really good. Did that full time for probably about 4 years full time, mainly just online, occasionally in Vegas or California, but most of the time just hanging out at home and just playing on the internet. And then I got into, I never envisioned poker as a long-term thing. It was more of a cash play. It was just really good money, really easy to, make good money, especially as a 22, 23-year-old. And so I used, the money I made from poker to start investing, and started doing online businesses, and then transitioned, and I've been doing online business ever since 2008, 2009, started my first companies online, and then started doing e-commerce stores in 2011. Started Forever Jobless in 2012 or 13, and then been doing the online stuff ever since.
That's awesome. Well, I love your mindset, like going into poker, like as a young, college student in your early 20s, and just being like, hey, I'm just gonna try it out, see if it works. And then you notice other people are like, we're doing really well with it, and you studied them and modeled them, and you actually hired coaches to learn from. And I think that's like no matter what field you're in business, investing, in poker, and writing, publishing, wherever area or field you want to go into, like that's the exact same model you follow, because everyone starts out like you didn't know how to play poker. Like there's a time when you didn't even know how to play, right? And you just learn and you grow and you model successful people and learn from them. So I love your mindset on that.
Yeah, it's the easiest way. A lot of people talk about like, I want to be self-made and all that. Well, if you really think about it, nobody's really self-made. There's somebody they've learned from through a book or through a conference or through coaching. And the quickest way to shortcut your success is just hire somebody who's been there and done that, and they can show you the exact roadmap to go. Where you try to figure out yourself, you're just, you're going to spend 10 times as long just getting to where you would have been the first year.
Exactly. Yeah, like we all stand on the shoulders of giants. It's like all the people that came before us, they did the hard work, right?
Yeah.
And now it's up for us to go and learn from them and study the best we can and improve from there. So there's really there's no good reason to just reinvent the wheel and to go into a new industry or a new job or new calling and try to just create it all on your own. It's insane.
Yeah, especially in 2015, information is so easily available.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the internet, it's amazing. It's changed everything. So how are you using the internet to create businesses right now?
I guess the main thing I'm doing right now is Forever Jobless. Just the blog, the podcast, doing my first book, using, Instagram and places like that. The main project I'm doing within Forever Jobless is right now is the Incubator, basically helping people start profitable businesses. So basically just going through I kind of have a formula on where, kind of how I launch businesses or any business that I'm looking into. I have a 4-step process that I go to and basically been helping people learn that formula take their ideas through the formula to learn, if their idea will work or not. I see most people who launch businesses, and they have no idea whether it will work. And so they launch it and either fails or succeeds. And then, most of the time it fails because they don't understand what makes a successful business. And so I've been spending a lot of time basically breaking down the process I go through so other people can take their ideas through and just simplify the process where you should really know if your idea will work before you launch most of the time. Or if you don't know if it will work, you should have a high enough expected value where it's worth the effort of potentially failing. And for your audience that doesn't know expected value, it's a popular term in poker, where basically it's a mathematical result that should happen over a long term. So in other words, if we flipped a coin, you and I would have a 50-50 chance of having heads or tails, right? So we wouldn't, if we bet some money on it, we wouldn't have any edge on the other person. Well, in business and poker and anything else, there's an actual expected value to launching a business or launching a book or launching a blog. And most people don't take any time to actually understand what that is before they go into projects. So basically, I spend a lot of my time helping people understand that process and the math behind what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's so important and so crucial for success, and especially like the more money you're investing, right? Like if you're just starting a blog, you don't have to invest much money. It's not as big of a deal to figure out. But if you're investing $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 into a business, you better know going into it, what your expected value is, like what results you expect financially to get from that business to pay back your investment and earn a profit. And I see so many people, and I'm sure you do too, Billy, like you said, they start a business and they have no idea how they're going to make money and how they're going to make a profit. And they don't understand what drives a business to being profitable. And that's just a recipe for failure right there. And there's nothing wrong with failing. I mean, we all learn from mistakes, but if you can know ahead of time or have a better understanding ahead of time of how to actually turn that business into a success, it's going to be a lot easier.
Yeah, totally. A lot less risk for sure.
Totally. So okay. So walk us through kind of your 4-step process and how do you get rid of that risk? Because that's such a crucial thing to do, is to get rid of risk.
Yeah. So the 4 steps I go through, and this is literally anytime I'm thinking about an idea, I'll take it through the 4 steps. And the first step is the idea phase. And so that's basically whatever idea you're thinking about. Is the idea valuable, or is the idea more valuable than what's already in the market? And what I mean by that is most people launch businesses that are Me Too type businesses. It's the same thing that already exists. They see someone else doing really well at something and they say, wow, like they're making a lot of money doing that. I'm going to do that too. I want to make money like that. The problem with that is that somebody else has already filled that gap. Like there's no gap in that space. And so most people try and go in and create Me Too businesses and they fail and they don't understand why. Well, the reason is because somebody already solved that problem. So unless you're solving a problem in a bigger way than somebody's already done, it's not going to be successful. And that's the biggest, most people can't even get past the first step, yet they launch anyways, even though they actually would have failed the first step. I've had people in the incubator and they say, wow, like I would have saved $10,000 on my last business and day 2, I would have figured it out, where they just spent the last 6 to 8 months trying to launch something that wasn't going to work because it didn't actually fill a need that wasn't already solved. The second step is marketing. So even if you have an amazing idea, you're filling a need, you're creating something that people really want. If you can't actually get in front of the audience, then it doesn't even matter. Like it's not going to work. You have to figure out how you're going to reach your audience. And the marketing, some people are good at marketing, some people aren't. If you aren't good at marketing, it's something you really need to figure out on the front end. Can I actually market this, or can I bring on somebody to help me market this, whatever it may be, because most of the time people are going to fail at one of those 2 things. Like those are the 2 things that are most important does it have a potential to work? Once you get past the first two steps, it's due diligence is the third stage. And that's basically, looking at everything your competitors are doing. How are they getting, is it $1 million business? Is it a, $20,000 business? It depends on, what kind of space you're looking at, but you want to get an idea of how they're doing, because that'll give you an idea of the potential of, what you can or a product or service more valuable than something that's in the market. all that's happened is your competitor has already done all your hard work for you. They've basically proven that the model works, that the market wants, what they have. And if you make it better, it's actually very easy to launch something successfully. And so most people see competitors as a bad thing. I view it as a very good thing because most of the homework's already been done. If you're creating a business that has never existed ever before, you have all sorts of question marks that you don't really know. It's going to be a lot harder. But
it's going to be a lot more risky, right? Because there's just so much you don't know.
Totally. It's going to be like, no matter how much homework you do, it's going to be a little bit of a crapshoot, because if nobody's ever sold something like you're thinking of to an audience, you can get an idea for if they'll want it or need it. But, a lot of times competitors are, to some degree, lower your risk of having competitors as long as you're solving the first two steps correctly. So yeah, in the third phase, I'm trying to get an idea of who are the competitors, how are they getting business, what could I do better than them? Can I reach the audience the same way that they're doing and others? What does each traffic source or sales source, what amount of their sales do those equate to? And then the fourth step is really where, you want to break down, okay, based on the first three steps, what is my expected value? What's my expected profits from the business? Now, if people have never gone through the process of solving the first three steps, it seems very hard to say, wait, I'm actually going to be able to guess what my profits are. But you can absolutely do it. I've done it on businesses where obviously you're not trying to come to an exact dollar amount. You're just trying to get a range of, okay, I know if I do this as good or better than my competitor, this is good or better than my competitor. You already have an idea of what people are doing in the market, so you'll kind of know where you're going to fall. For example, with the book that I'm going to be doing, I reached out to you and was, picking your brain a little bit. And, I talked to other people who have written books. And so, part of what I'm doing is finding out, okay, I know, people are selling this many books, and I think I'm offering a different product that is not on the market. And so it's just due diligence and kind of finding out, and then I'm finding out margins on the books. And so all of that plays into, when I do my phase 4 is, okay, I think I should expect to make X, from a book, for example. So it can really be on anything from a blog, from a book, from a product, from a service business. And that's why it's important usually in step 1, I always tell people you should know exactly what your goal is, because if you don't know what your goal is, when you get to phase 4 and, you're going to come to your expected profit of launching the business, you're going to have a trouble like knowing what to do. Where if you say, I want to get into a business where I make $5,000 a month, and then you get to phase 4 and you figure out, I think this will make $2,000 a month. Right away, it's don't waste your time. Don't waste your time and money. Where a lot of people will dive into an idea that they think can be profitable, and they might be right. If they waste all their time on an idea that can't hit their goals, it's still a waste of time. And I think a lot of people waste a lot of time and money chasing an opportunity that might be an okay opportunity, but it won't hit their goals. Where if your goal was $5,000 a month and you got done phase 4 and you said, okay, this is going to make about $10,000 a month, great, you should jump in. Where a lot of times people would get to that scenario of thinking about launching the business and they would have no idea. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's, should I do it? Will I make enough? But like going through a process like that, it tells you whether you should go forward or not. So you don't waste a lot of time and money on either from not launching if you should launch, or from launching something that you actually shouldn't launch.
And that's such a great point. And I totally made that mistake when I first started, online. I was blogging, and this was like 10 years ago. This was like a long time ago. And back then, advertising rates were like much better than they are now. So I knew a lot of bloggers back then who were like doing really well with their blogs, with ads, like 6-figure businesses just from ads on their blog. And so I started my blog back then. I thought, oh, well, I'm going to do, 6 figures with my blog. And it never happened that way, right? Because the market changed and I didn't do my due diligence. I just, I heard a couple of stories from people, but I really didn't do the research. And I wasted, years working on blogs, working on projects that really didn't have a chance of reaching my financial goals. And I think that's so important. Everything you're teaching is like, go through this process. And also too, if you have an existing business, this isn't just for like a new business. If you have an existing business and you're thinking about starting a new project or a new service or a new product, you can go through the same process for every different project you're working on and make sure before you start it that it's going to be something worthwhile.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So tell us more about your incubator program and the kind of people going through that, and what kind of projects people have come out of that with.
Yeah, so it just started a couple of months ago, so it's relatively new. We've got a number of people doing anything from service-related businesses. There's a couple of people with product-based businesses. There's one of the guys who's done really well just launched probably about a month ago, and he launched a product-based business. And literally his goal, I think, was like 4,600 a month. And I haven't got his final tally for what his first month total was, but he's going to be right in that range of, $4,000 to $5,000 profit his first month. And that's the goal, is that, when he got kind of the green light of, okay, I think this is going to, hit my expected value. I can remember an exchange from him where, he was calculating the EV on, cause he had the risk of buying from, he bought from China. And okay, I'm going to make this, I forget the investment he made. It was, $3,000 or $4,000. And so he was trying to calculate, it was his first business. So he didn't know, man, that's a lot of money to lose. But once you break down the expected value and the expected profit on his back end from launching the product, it was a no brainer. So a lot of people going through the steps of, kind of deciding if they want to launch certain products. A lot of people are in, for example, like phase 3, really looking at their competitors, seeing if they would launch. One or two people already in the launch phase. He just launched it really well. Got a person in the tattoo space. I mean, they're all over. Because what I see differently in, a lot of products they're doing it for one specific business. And the incubator, I guess, my goal was to do it a little bit differently and do it towards, nobody had a process for any sort of business where there's an actual like formula to take your business through or your idea through. And so, yeah, the goal was basically to take any sort of idea or help you come up with ideas if you don't have them, and show you ideas that would work going through the process.
That's awesome. It's basically like a business school, like a real entrepreneurial business school. Because I went to business school at Indiana University, and I even studied the entrepreneurship program, and
right.
But all my professors, like out of all my professors, only one of them was an actual entrepreneur. Right? Only one of them had actually started a business, raised money and create a real business. The rest were, professors and consultants, and it's great, but it's totally different when you learn from like a real entrepreneur in the field who's doing it and done it and can actually show you what's working like today, like right now.
Yeah, no, I had the same thing, man. I when I was in college, I was all excited to take, marketing courses and entrepreneurship courses. And then I realized, like, wait a minute, like all the people teaching me haven't actually done it. They're just like going from the book. And so it was a big learning process. And anything that I've done, anytime I've taken advice from somebody who hasn't been there, I usually don't do very well, because it's not coming from somebody who's already been, basically created the roadmap. With poker, with business, with the, with the fitness stuff, hired somebody who'd already been there, done that. And it was, it makes it a lot easier. Anytime you take advice from someone, like whatever it is, whether it's writing a book, people should only get advice from person who's done that already.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, wow. I mean, it sounds like you've done some really cool stuff with your incubator there. And I love, what you said before about like expected value, and that guy you were working with, he ordered from China like the $4,000, and he said, that's a big investment. But one of the things I've learned from like really successful entrepreneurs is that when they look at the cost of something, the cost of investment, they don't just look at the price. Like, okay, I have to spend $4,000. That's just price. That's not what's really important. What's important, like you said, is what's the expected value, right? Because if you can spend $4,000 and turn it into $20,000 of value for your customer, there's room there for you to make a profit to create a real business. And that's what's important. It doesn't matter how much money you spend or invest. What matters is the value that you create in your business. So I love that. And I love that you're creating massive value for people and helping them create massive value for their customers. I guess my question is, what is the one thing that you've seen entrepreneurs do that really creates massive value in a market, especially like in a marketplace that's crowded, like with a book or with a blog, where there's like millions of other books and blogs and things out there? How do you create value in a market like that?
So on things like books, blogs, I did it for my podcast, is basically those are very crowded, right? So there's tons and tons of people in them, but they're not saturated at all. So the big difference being, there's always certain gaps that you can do something differently than other people are doing them. So for example, with my blog, it's basically when I went in and was thinking about blogging a couple years ago, I looked at all the blogs. Like during my due diligence phase, I looked at I literally probably went through over 500 blogs, and I was looking at everything from how many comments are they getting, what's causing those comments, what was the length of the posts, are they doing interviews and guest posts and anything and everything you could look at. And a big thing that I found was there was almost no competitors for very long, in-depth blog posts. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people don't want to sit down and read a 3,000 word blog post. And I'm okay with that because, a lot of people incorrectly try and solve for everybody. Like, in case somebody won't want something, they'll say, I can't do that in case this person, nobody wants to read a long article. Yeah, a lot of people don't, but, I figure if I can be number one at something. So for example, writing, very, very in-depth, long entrepreneurship articles. My goal is to be the number one writer for the subjects that I'm writing on. So that's my goal. If I tried to write, the most people, when they say, okay, you want to write a blog, you want to do 3 posts a week, 500 words so that you'll go up in the Google rankings, but that doesn't actually solve any sort of problem. So that's the big problem.
You're not focused on the kind of customer at that point. You're just focused on yourself and your strategy, but it's not really adding value to the reader, which is what you're focused on.
Totally. Yeah. Most people go into business thinking of like what it can do for them. And that's really backwards, because if you just go in and thinking like, how can I be the best at whatever it is that I'm trying to solve for, in the case of a blog, for a reader, as a byproduct, like it'll be easy for you to do really well because you'll be number one to that person. Like if I just put out 500 word posts 3 times a week on entrepreneurship, man, there's so many people doing that same exact thing. I wouldn't stand out at all. So when I came out, I think I wrote like 2 or 3, 2, 3, 4,000 word articles right off the bat in the first, month or so, and I think I had like 1,000 subscribers within a month or something like that. And so it was, and everyone was saying, well, how are you growing so fast? But it wasn't that complicated. I had literally no competition for the space I was going into, which was insanely in-depth articles on subjects that either people hadn't talked about before or people hadn't talked about in depth, to where if they had written a 500 word article on it, and I went and did like a 3,000 word, like this is the definitive article on this subject, then all of a sudden everybody's linking to that post because they don't have any reason to link to the other blogs that just, touched on it for their own SEO purposes. So, I don't write for Google or anybody. I write for, people who have been, I guess, in the place I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago in entrepreneurship, like all the things I wish I had known, like I'm writing for those people.
That's awesome. And I love that that's actually your strategy that you planned ahead of time. Because when I was first doing my due diligence on you and doing my research on you, I looked at your website and I looked at your blog and I started reading your articles and I was like, holy crap, like this article is like a book. Like it's so long, it's so in-depth, it's so detailed. And I looked at the comments, you had like 200 comments, and I was like how is this possible? Because I'd never heard of you before, and your website, it's not like it was one of the top blogs in the world, but you had like such amazing engagement from your audience, right, and such quality content, and that really does set you apart. I immediately noticed when I looked at your website that it set you apart. So that's awesome. That was actually like your strategy, your plan from the beginning, right? Because you set it up that way for success.
Yeah, and it's it's not for everybody. It's obviously, if my goal was just to make money off of it, it might not be an efficient strategy, because I'm putting out like one of my posts, I think it might have been 8,000 words. And so other people are like, hey, you should turn that into a book or turn that into, a video course and all this stuff. But, if my goal is then to just do that, then I'd potentially be another book producer, another video producer, course producer. But like, that wouldn't be my goal. My goal would be like create better content on my free material than other people make in their courses. And then you're going to stand out a lot more. So, maybe it's not optimal if my goal, 100% goal is monetization, but at the same time, like doing things like that guarantees me an audience. And keep in mind, I'm not just telling people like write long posts, because if I just wrote a bunch of words, then I wouldn't, nobody wouldn't resonate with anybody. I wouldn't get any comments at all. But like I'm taking, 40 hours on some of those posts and just putting everything down. Like the 8,000 word post, it probably took me 40 hours to write. And it's all, I think that was like a goal achievement one, like exactly how to accomplish any goal that you want. in 1 year. And so things like that where, other people said, write a book on it. Again, it's just, if you just give it out for free, go get, if you want 1,000 subscribers, go write a post like that and you'll get 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that because like your focus is just like insane focus on the customer. Like you said, like maybe it's not the most profitable strategy, but it's the best value for your audience. And that's what I think, any entrepreneur, any author should focus on is like, what is the best value for your audience and how do you add more value there? Like way more than what anyone else is doing in your market.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So is there any other, tools, strategies, things that you've done with your blog that has set it apart, or is that just really that main strategy is what's done it for you?
For the blog, that's been the main one, is just put out really in-depth, definitive articles on subjects. At podcast, I did pretty much the opposite. Everyone was doing long interview series podcasts at the time in the entrepreneurship space. And so at the time, nobody was doing the shorts. And so I started doing like 3 to 5 minute shorts. And for the entrepreneurship space, I think I was either the first one or maybe one of the first ones doing that. And so it was very easy to get a jump. And now there's a lot more people doing it. So there's more people in there. But at the time it was like, well, what if I can, go in 3 to 5 minutes, say something that would help people out. And so podcasts, again, came right out of the gate with, pretty much no audience. I think I had a couple thousand subscribers at the time. And I think the first month on the podcast, we had 58,000 downloads. And it's pretty much doing the same, like, again, just solving a need that's not quite solved. And it's literally, I'm not doing anything super special. I'm just, does it solve step one? Like, is somebody doing this already? If no, then I go on and like figure out how to market it. But unless I can figure out how to do something that nobody is doing, I don't consider launching it.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So I've kind of had a similar conversation with people before, and some people kind of have like the question in their back of their minds, like, okay, is this just a gimmick though? Like, are you just like, oh, you're just that guy who writes long blog posts? Is that just like a gimmick to get people in, or like, why does that model succeed, and why is that a good thing to do?
Well, I mean, I only know for me, it works for me because I can help change people's thinking in one post. Where I feel like most of the blogs that I read at the time before I started was, I would read them and say like, well, I can't really do anything with this. It was like, might have been like a motivation or oh, that sounds cool, but like it didn't change my thinking at all. And so I didn't think that, if I came out and it did short posts on the way that other people were doing them, writing for SEO subjects or anything, I didn't think that would help my audience. So, in terms of, writing long and does that, does it actually work? I mean, it works well for me in the sense that, I pick subjects that I know I either had trouble with or that were kind of aha moments for me as an entrepreneur. And then I just basically cover write anything that I've learned about them. And a lot of times I can include like specific case studies from my life that work so people can see, oh, that's a scenario it would apply to, like that I can apply to, whatever they're working on. So they work in that scenario because they're not just a quick tip type thing. I noticed that most blogs are tips and tricks. And it gives you ideas on how you can, increase, the size of your list or, conversion rate and all that stuff. But it's, there's so much stuff like that out there that I really haven't seen many things that can help you change the way you think about something with actual data or case studies or math backing it up. And so that's the main goal, is that, and with the math that, I include and the case studies that I include, it's, people can see that it actually works, like that it's not just theory based.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that, because that's so true. I mean, there's so many blog posts that, you read them and it's like you can read it in 5 minutes and yeah, it's cool. It's like, here's an idea to build your email list, right? But then when it comes time for you to actually apply it to your business, like there's this big gap, right? They told you what to do. They didn't tell you necessarily how to do it, or they didn't give you, the case studies and things that you need to see that's actually going to work for you. So I love that you're just giving people like a better product. You're giving people a better blog post so that by the time they're done reading it, they can actually implement it, take action, and make a difference in their life.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, okay, this is cool. It's been a great interview. before you go, tell us a little bit more about your incubator program and how people can find out more about you.
Yeah, people can find the incubator at foreverjobless.com/incubator. People can find me on iTunes, on the Forever Jobless. They search Forever Jobless on iTunes and the podcast, foreverjobless.com/blog for the blog. And then if they're on social media, they can follow me on Instagram at Instagram/foreverjobless. But yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Billy, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.